Hi Year 3 and welcome to Tuesday's reading lesson. Our learning objective today is to explain using evidence from the text. Let's just have a check from yesterday. What problem did Merlin have in chapter 1? And how is he going to solve his problem? What did Gwen suggest that he did to solve his problem? Pause the video now and see if you can remember. Well done. We know that Merlin's problem was that he had lost the King of England. He'd hidden him and he couldn't remember where. How was he going to solve the problem? Well, Gwen suggested that he made a test that only the King of England could pass to see if then he could find him. And who was she going to test? Well done, she's going to test the knights. Let's see how they got on and whether your predictions were correct. Let's have a look at today's tricky words. Can you pause the video and have a go at reading them on your own first? Welcome back. Let's have a go at reading them together. Knights, enemies, dignity. What is the root word in quickly? Well done, it's quick. And we know that quick, add ly, makes quickly, which is an adverb. Well done. Then at the bottom, what spelling rule can you see in the word striding? Let's find the root word first. Well done, that's stride. They've added the suffix ing onto the end. What have they done with the root word? Well done, they've taken away the e before adding ing. Have a look at the 5 words on the screen. Can you pause the video and have a go at saying them yourself? Well done. I hope you enjoyed having a go at saying the words on the screen. Now we're going to go through, say it, shout it, whisper it, clap it and act it between us. Are you ready? We're going to start with wizard. 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 How many syllables? Well done, it's got 2. Now we're going to act it out. Next one, blushed. Are you ready? Blushed. 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 How many syllables? Well done, 1. Now we're going to act out blushed. Next one is armour. 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 How many syllables? 2. Well done. Now we're going to act it out. Next one is scowled. Are you ready? Scowled. 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 How many syllables? Well done, 1. Now we're going to act it out. Now we're on to the final word. Are you ready? Polish. 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 How many syllables? Well done, 2. And now we're going to act it out. As I'm reading the text to you, I would like you to listen out for any of these words. And if you hear them, I would like you to do the action. We're now going to read the next chapter of Merlin and the Lost King of England. Chapter 2. Arthur was in the tent preparing the armour for the joust. His foster brother, Sir Kay, came in. He didn't look happy. Artie, what have you done to my shield? It's very shiny, but it smells of flowers. I can't scare my enemies smelling of violets, said Sir Kay. Arthur jumped up and gave the shield a final polish. Stop moaning, Kay, said Arthur. I used a new mixture that I made up myself. The old stuff was useless. See, your shield has never looked so good. Oof, grunted Sir Kay. Boys, called Sir Ector, striding into the tent, I've just come from the town. Merlin has set a test for every knight in the land. The winner gets to be king. Can I try? Asked Sir Kay. Of course, said his father. And me? Asked Arthur. Sir Ector put his hand on his foster son's shoulder. Artie, you are only a squire, said Sir Ector. You can't take a test like this until you are older. Arthur scowled. He felt that he would make a very good king if he was given the chance. He always had lots of ideas. It would be much more fun to have a kingdom in which to try them out. Not fair, he muttered. Yes, it is, said Sir Ector. Now, please get my weapons ready for the joust this afternoon. Kay and I are off to take the test. Left alone in the tent, Arthur polished the armour until it shone like the sun. He couldn't wait to grow up and be a knight. He did a final check on the weapons. Oh no! Sir Ector's sword was nowhere to be seen. With a terrible sinking feeling, Arthur realised that he had used it to stir his polish mixture. He had left it in the kitchen at home. Arthur had to think quickly. He needed another sword, and soon. He stepped out of the tent and made his way through the camp. It was empty because all the knights were at Merlin's test. Arthur wondered what the wizard had asked them to do. Fight a dragon. Tame a wild wolf. When Arthur walked into the town, a big crowd was coming the other way. All the knights were very cross. It is impossible, said Sir Ector. Merlin's finally lost his marbles, exclaimed Sir Kay. Everyone had failed Merlin's test. Let's go and start the joust, suggested Sir Ector. Good idea, said Sir Kay. Are you coming, Artie? Arthur shook his head. I've got something I have to do first, he said. I won't be long. I'm going to show you a my turn question where I use the skill of explain. The question is, how is Sir Kay feeling about his shield? So I'm going to show you the page that I'm going to look to find the answer. After looking back at the text, I have answered this question. I think Sir Kay is feeling embarrassed about his shield because it smells of flowers. I also know this because he says, I can't scare my enemies smelling of violets. Now, I've said what I think is the answer, but then I've also used evidence from the text. I think he's embarrassed, and I've said it's because he can't scare away his enemies. So I've given my answer, and I've supported it using evidence from the text. Let's see if you can do that with the next question. Why do you think they left Arthur behind? And I've given you a bit of a sentence starter. I think they left Arthur behind because, and I'd like you to finish the sentence. Now, you can explain to me why they left him behind, and if you want to push yourself, you can try and find some evidence in the text. Here are your chili challenges for you to have a go at on your own now. If you're doing chili 1, I'd like you to answer the question, why was Sir Kay allowed to take the test but Arthur wasn't? Explain your answer. If you're doing chili 2, I'd like you to answer this question. Do you like this text so far? What do you like or dislike about it? Explain using evidence from the text. And if you're doing chili 3, I'd like you to answer this question. How do you know that this story is set a long time ago? Use evidence that you can find in the text. Now it's time to celebrate some of the amazing work you've been doing. Well done to Joseph in 3B, who has written a wonderful answer about what the author is warning you about in the story of Fizzlebert. He's used examples from the text and reasoning to explain to us why
Fizzlebert wasn't wary of strangers and telling us that we need to be wary. Well done, Thomas. 2 dojo points for you. And well done to Rosie in 3P. She has clearly identified where we need to put the emphasis when reading. Mr. Preston was also very impressed that you have tried to work on your handwriting because he set you the task of making your writing a little bit smaller from last week, and he can see that you've been working really hard on doing that. Well done, 2 dojo points for you.
Okay, now we're going to carry on with Fizzlebert's stump. Now, yesterday we started chapter 7, and can you remember who Fizz met in the Stinkthrottle's house? Well done. It was Kevin, okay? And why was Kevin there? Yes, well done. He'd been kidnapped too by the Stinkthrottles, and they were trying to find a way to escape. But Fizz was busy telling Kevin all about his adventures at the circus. Then Mrs. Stinkthrottle had shouted to them to get the dinner ready. Let's carry on. Kevin suddenly looked serious again. The laughter had stopped, and they both remembered where they were. How they were all alone, locked in this strange house with these horrible old people. Kevin sniffed again, but quickly pulled himself together, wiped his nose on the silvery part of his school jumper's sleeve, and emptied a can of baked beans into a saucepan. He popped a couple of slices of stiff, stale bread in the toaster and switched it on. Fizz looked at the letter Kevin had found in the night. It was from the local council, and, as far as Fizz could understand, a lot of it was written in long words and jargon. It said that they had received complaints from some of the Stinkthrottle's neighbours about the horrible smells coming from their house. An inspector had been dispatched and a report had been filed which said that if the Stinkthrottles didn't sanitise, which just means clean, but really thoroughly, their house, the council would have to do it for them, which sounded like a good thing until, and put the two old people in an old people's home while they did so. If they could get the house cleaned up themselves, then that would prove to the council that they were still quite capable. Thank you very much. But it was clear to Fizz that, instead of doing it themselves, they'd have begun recruiting, or kidnapping, a workforce of kids to do it for them. As the beans cooked, Fizz told Kevin what he thought was going on. Yeah, that's what I thought too, Kevin agreed. It was me yesterday, you today, and who knows how many more kids she's going to get. The idea was terrifying. Fizz thought of the fairy tales his dad had used to tell him. His mum, not surprisingly, preferred reading nonsense poems. Kids like Hansel and Gretel got stolen away by witches, but the kids always won in the end, didn't they? But how? Fizz couldn't remember, and what he could remember wasn't much use. If he was going to stick Mrs. Stinkthrottle in her own oven, he'd have to empty out the snooker balls, telephone directory, porcelain figurines, and month-old remains of a roast chicken that were certainly filling it up. But he didn't want to kill her. She wasn't planning on eating him, like a witch might do. He just wanted to escape. An idea failed to pop up with the toast, which was soon buttered with butter from the only corner of the tub that wasn't filled with crumbs and blue things. He didn't look too closely. Kevin ladled the beans on top and opened the door so he could take lunch through to the old couple. The Stinkthrottles were sitting side by side on the sofa, each surrounded by rubbish that loomed over them, looking as if they might be buried in a landslide. A rubbish slide? At any moment. They had trays on their laps and knives and forks in their hands and were clearly ready for their lunch. At last! Mrs. Stinkthrottle shouted over the thundering television. It was horse racing, and the hoofs were pounding the turf, and the traditional simile for that is like thunder. And who am I to dodge tradition? You took your time about it. Give it here. She really had very poor manners. Fizz wondered how he'd ever been taken in by her. It was only an hour or two since they'd first met outside the library, and he was amazed at the transformation. As soon as he and Kevin had put the plates down, she started shoveling her food into her mouth. Mr. Stinkfrottle, on the other hand, looked surprised when, a little later, he glanced down and saw his lunch had mysteriously arrived. He spooned his beans up more carefully. In a few minutes, it was all gone, and she let out a small sideways burp and didn't say pardon. "You, Kevin, my little one, get back in the kitchen and get on with your cleaning." Kevin scuttled away, looking back over his shoulder at Fizz, his brand new friend, and then looking away as if he was afraid they wouldn't see each other again. "And you, little Johnny," she said, grabbing Fizzlebert sharply by the ear and pulling herself up from the sofa. "I've got a special job for you." Ooh, what do you think the job might be? She pulled him across the front room back towards the hallway where they'd first come in. Her pointy finger hurt when they pinched the skin, and now that he'd had a chance to get a closer look, he knew there was all sorts of muck underneath her nails. It wasn't just the house that was dirty. When they got to the hall, she pointed up the stairs. "Up there," she said. "Straight in front of you is the bathroom. I want it clean. I want it sparkling. I want it shiny. I want the mirrors so shiny I can see my face in them. Get up there. Go on. Go, go, go." She pushed him and he moved. He climbed the narrow passage up the stairs, squeezing between teetering piles of rubbish, and finally found himself on the landing. The bathroom door creaked open and he pulled the cord which turned on the light. Looking around, it was obvious why Mrs. Stinkfrottle hadn't washed recently. The bathtub was full of things, the usual mix of assorted rubbish, mushrooms and discarded handstands, as was the sink. The walls glistened with wiggling silvery stripes, which Fizz had a feeling might have been snail trails. He didn't even want to think about looking in the toilet. He wondered what he could possibly do to make the place cleaner or tidier, other than blowing it up, perhaps. "Get on with it! Don't dawdle!" The old crone's voice shouted from the bottom of the stairs. "I'll be up later to make sure you're doing it right." Then he heard the door to the front room slam shut. She'd gone back to her husband and the telly. Fizzlebert was all alone upstairs, but he was thinking about poor Kevin down in the kitchen. Fizz knew that the Stinkfrottles would take ages getting up the stairs. They'd walk slowly enough coming home from the library. But they could go into the kitchen whenever they liked. Poor Kevin. Finn tried to think of some sort of plan of escape. He knew that he really had to now, because it wasn't just him in trouble. He wanted to help Kevin get out too. He'd made a friend that he wanted to keep, a friend he liked the idea of chatting with in the fresh air and the sunshine, that made escape seem all the more urgent. But while Fizz thinks about making daring escape plans and works out how to make a start on cleaning the bathroom, I think it's best we take a quick break and let him concentrate without us peering over his shoulder all the time. So, I'm going to have a lie down in the dark-ended room for half an hour, and then maybe a long hot bath, before I head on into chapter 8, which will be coming along next. Okay, so we're up to chapter 8, and we will finish reading that tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed listening to the next chapter of the story, and I'll see you in tomorrow's reading lesson. Bye!